Alright, so good evening, everybody. Hello, it's Skelton. I am here on behalf of the Word Wizards. I am going to be reading the fourth chapter in Be Not Far From Me. This is going to be interesting because I have yet to read any of this book, so I'm going to just dive right in on the fourth chapter and see how this goes. I hope you all enjoy it. Alright, so, day 4. In the morning, my foot is so bad I can smell it without bringing it to my nose, which means anything else can too. It didn't wake to anything chewing on me, but there was a rustling in the bush when I slid out from under the overhang in the morning to take a piss. I tried to be careful, but I'm weak as a kitten and managed to pee on myself. I'd rather smell like urine than death, though. One will keep the critter away, the other will bring them in for a meal. I strip off my clothes and slip into the creek. I smell like old blood and dried sweat layered on top of death and piss. I wash as best I can, checking the line of mud I drew on my leg last night. The red streaks have marched past it as I slept, the spread of the infection reaching up my calf. The swelling follows, leaving skin swollen and tight. This is how I measure time, with no clock and the sun perpetually hidden. There is no such thing as minutes and hours, only the freckles on my leg, the scar beneath it, and how long it will take for the red fingers of inflammation to reach them. And the answer is not long. The follow-up is even less if I get a fever that weakens me. Yesterday, I was thinking that if I had been treating this whole thing like the test of my abilities, I needed to pass it real soon. After looking at my foot, I put the deadline a little closer, edging up on me just like the red on my leg. Doesn't sound like this is going very well for this person. Urgency leads me to head off, and clothes still wet from the creek, adding to the weight I bear and chafing against my leg. I cannot wait for them to dry, cannot wait for the sun and wind to do me favors, cannot stop to try and catch a fish, because infinite patience is required to snare one from the water with only your hands, and I have neither infinite nor patient. What I have is a bomb on the end of my leg. Not one that will explode, but rather expand, licking its poison into my healthy tissue until I'm no longer well enough to walk. And once that happens, I'm done. I've given myself until the swelling hits the scar on my calf, the remnant of a deep cut from the steel siding of a neighbor's trailer that opened me down to the muscle when I was trick-or-treating. My Wonder Woman cape getting stuck in between the stacked cinder blocks they used for steps. I pulled my sock up and told them that I was fine, because they were a nice old couple that gave out whole candy bars instead of the bite sizes. And I had never had a whole candy bar to myself in my life. I limped home, shoe full of blood, ate the candy bar in the back of the truck while Dad took me to the urgent care, where they charged only half of what the ER does, and do stitches as good as anybody else. I'm searching the sky for a break in the trees. I'm listening for the sound of a car. And God help me, I'm looking for Flint, because I can't take my foot off without it. Tonight we're also featuring some kind of tea that Mom had. Trees are thieves. They take things from you quietly, swiping a bandana from your ponytail, or a hair tie from your wrist. I've seen $100 sunglasses hanging off maples and water bottles snagged on low-hanging willows, their wispy fingers pulling things from hikers' packs without them knowing they had lost something until they need it. I spot the hat while I'm looking for a break in the canopy, hoping to see an open area that means there's a road ahead. The hat is just out of my reach, which means the tree stole it years ago. It's been hanging there waiting for its owner to come back. Meanwhile, it travels higher, the tree claiming it forever. But not for me. I want that hat, and I'm going to get it. I whack at the branch. It's stuck on with my walking stick, taking a few inexpert swings. I miss the first time and land on my front the next, grinding my own curled fists into my stomach and sending the dandelions I ate earlier back up into my throat. I swallow fast because I'm not into a position to be wasting anything. Then I get back up and try again. It's the fifth swing, my ninth swear, and a good gust of wind that does it. The hat lands at my feet, and I follow it down to the ground, happy to finally win at something, and happier yet to rest. I'm sweating, exhausted, cursing myself for a fool to have wasted so much strength on something stupid. But I wanted that hat, and I got it. And I wanted it because it's Davey Beats. No one ever found him. They sent in search parties and sniffer dogs. Family and friends, ex-girlfriends, enemies trying to make better what had gone wrong. I wanted to go, but Dad wouldn't let me. Aware of my confidence and my connection to the missing. Dad was afraid I'd go into the woods after Davey beat. His girl hero come to save the day, but gets lost in the woods and ends her own life. Davey was so gone, it was like he never was. Even if I could still look at his pictures in the camp mailing I kept every spring when it showed up in the mailbox. Rumors started, some people saying he went in there with no intention of ever coming out. Others saying that no way the woods got the better of Davey Beat. That he'd come home any day now with a great story and a better smile. I was a fervent believer in the latter. I blew up at Samantha's cousin of the campfire for saying a bear got Davey. Because while that was something that could have happened, it's an opinion that leaves no room for doubt. In my mind, Davey Beat is alive and well, using all he's got to walk these woods and make a way for himself. Maybe trying to find his way home, maybe not. To me, whatever Davey decided to do was the right call. And I bet the bears ran away from him. It got to be an issue between me and Duke. The way I held Davey up in my mind. One time when he was hiking, we hit a spur that neither one of us knew too well. There was a lonely trail sign stuck into the ground showing the length of it, but not clarifying the distance. I took one glance and told him no way we could do that spur and get back before dark, and neither of us had flashlights. Duke said it was fine. The spur didn't seem that long to him. 3 hours later, we were hustling it, flashing our phones on whenever we needed them to spot the blazes, trying to conserve battery. We broke out onto the trailhead past midnight, thirsty, exhausted, covered in bug bites, leg muscles flickering from the pace. We'd had to pick it up after dark fell. We had to pick it up after dark fell. As you can tell, I'm an excellent reader. More than once, we heard things larger than us moving off trail. I'd kept my mouth shut the whole time, knowing that arguing about whose fault it was not going to get us home any faster. But my silence irritated Duke just as much as if I had said anything. And when we climbed into his old truck, I didn't get an apology for what could have been a tense night in the woods. Instead, I got his jealousy, all stopped up and simmering from every word I'd ever said about Davey that he let pass by. "I know what you're thinking," Duke had said, knuckles white on the steering wheel as he drove me home. "You're thinking you were hiking with Davey Beat. He would have known better than to take that spur." My own anger jumped up at that. For one thing, because I hadn't said a goddamn sideways word to Duke, even though he couldn't have gotten us killed. And another because I didn't like the way he said Davey Beat's name, like it had a bad taste. So I hit back hard. If I had been hiking with Davey Beat, I wouldn't have minded spending the nights in the wood. It was a low blow, and it hit him right where it was meant to. Duke didn't talk to me for a few days, but we picked up like it had never happened when he came to my door with fishing poles and a can of worms. For my part, I did not try to mention Davey quite as much, even when Duke was casting wrong, and I knew Davey could have done it better. But Davey beat was never far from my mind. An hour in the time when he first went missing. I sat in Dad's recliner, the foot permanently flipped up because it got stuck that way, watching the news every night for a week. Davey was the lead story, then a follow-up, then a late mention. Soon he was dropped entirely, because there was nothing to say anymore. Hope it faded, just like the pattern in the knit cap I was holding now. He kept it clipped to the side of his pack, even in the summer. As he said, you never know if you're going to stay out all night, and it could get chilly in the woods, after dark, no matter what season it was. His mom had made it for him, carefully counting stitches as she wove, tan yarn into brown, knitting antlers into her son's hat. Davey told me it was the nicest thing anyone had ever done for him, even if she did only think of her son as an 8-point. I put it on my head now, though I'm sweating. And we're the only thing anyone has ever seen of Davey beat in the past 2 years. People have been using flints since forever to start fires and make tools to kill animals and each other. I'm not aiming to kill anyone, or anything, including myself. And while having some tools would be nice, it's not exactly fixing to stay around long enough to build a house. What I need is a good edge on something with enough weight behind it to go clear through my foot. I'm half hoping to find it, half hoping not to. It's taken the better part of a day, and I've sweated right through Davey Beat's hat. But I'm not taking it off because I know another tree will steal it. I follow the sounds of running water, and when I notice the shadows getting longer, take a few deep drinks and check my leg again. My scars a white blaze surrounded by red. The skin around it is puffed and itching. Shit, I say. Stuck my whole leg into the water to cool it off while I think. Mostly I'm thinking about running. It's a dumb thing to worry about when I can't even walk, but running becomes a session after the first practice, when I had to show Coach that I could do it, and then the next, and when I had to show him I could do it better. It's a sport that we could afford, no equipment needed except for a pair of shoes. Even that could be sometimes a push. Even that could sometimes push Dad's worry lines a little deeper. But after I broke the state's record in cross-country, Coach started buying shoes for me out of the athletic funds. And thank God, because I go through 2 or 3 pairs in a season, running to practice, running at practice, and then running home. I ran on the weekends, got up early, ran in the mornings. I'd run to school, and half the time beat the bus there. The wind in my ears meant I couldn't hear nothing else, and that was just fine. And reading aloud's parching work. But there were things I did kind of like hearing. My name on the announcements at school when I placed at a big invitational. Everybody's reaction at my face in the paper when I made it to the Nationals as a sophomore. Davey Beat even wrote me a letter about that. The handwriting careful and neat, as were the words. I wrote him back right away, but it was a community college mailbox and he had dropped out before my letter reached him. It came back to me, returned to sender, stamped in red ink. Getting a letter from Davey Beat was the high point in my life until a man in a windbreaker walked up to me after a meet and asked if I was considering going to college and where. I eyed him funny for a second, until my coach cut in and realized that I was talking to a scout. The idea that there was a college out there that might have a spot in it for me had never even been a whiff of a dream. I went home with paperwork and talked to Dad. We both cried a bit, and when I signed at the end of junior year, the local and county papers showed up to take my picture. The truth is that there's a full ride scholarship in it, in my feet, and one of them's coming off, and it doesn't mean I get half the money. It means I get none. Shit, I say again, and pull my leg from the water. I'm nearly numb, so it doesn't hurt as bad when I press against the skin, leaving a white indentation behind. The crushed part of my foot is gray and dead, but I'll have to cut where the tissue is still alive if it got any hope of stopping the infection. It'll hurt. That's not what worries me. What worries me is that I'll cut off part of my body and wake up tomorrow to find out I was half a mile from somebody's house and that I threw away college and any chance of being anything other than a washed-up athlete in a small town because I didn't know it. All the time I've been out here, I've been thinking in long terms, big goals. When I find the road, when I get to a hospital, when they fix my foot, this will all be like it never happened. But I don't think I'm anywhere near a road or a hospital. The only thing of those three right here, right now, is my foot, and it's going to kill me. It's the right now I've got to think about, and it's really hard. I pull Davey Beats' hat down over my face to shut out the world for a while. I don't know what to do, I admit. It gets hot under there fast, so I pull it back up, and the first thing I see is a nice hefty piece of flint sticking out of the bank opposite me. Well, fuck you too, I say. Mama told me once that I was born with teeth. It's one of the few things I remember clearly about her, mostly because she made it sound like I chewed my way out of her rather than being born the natural way. For the longest time I watched barn cats give birth, wondering why they didn't seem to mind so much. I learned later that humans are the only mammals that experience terrible pain when giving birth. Something they told me at Camp Little Fish was Eve's fault, but I thought it sounded more like poor planning on God's part. When I said so, Davey Beat laughed until his face was red as his last name. I was blushing too because he had noticed me. Dad told Mom she didn't need to be telling me that story anymore, and there was a big fight. One of the last ones. She told him he didn't have no idea what it was like to carry a child for the better part of a year, almost die getting it out, and then to have it not need her anymore. He told her to shut her mouth and stop making me feel bad for doing nothing worse than being born. And if I was born with teeth, it was because I came out ready to defend myself, and there wasn't any shame in that. So I was kind of proud of it, actually. When I told Meredith, she called me a liar. So I knocked her down on the playground, and her mom called mine. I listened in on the conversation. Mom using the old wall phone with the cord. She'd wrap around and around her arm while she talked. She started out apologizing for me, something she'd gotten good at, I guess. But after a few drinks of wild turkey, she was telling Meredith's mom all about the teeth and how I was born with fingernails, long as Tammy Faye Baker's. Mama said she could feel me inside of her, running my nails across her ribs, exploring the inside of her body, the same as I do in the woods now. She said she knew I was a wild thing and wasn't surprised when I started walking early, because it would have been fitting for me. I busted in then, told her I walked early so I could run sooner, all to get away from her and her endless bitching. I got a smack across the mouth for that, but I guess I kind of deserved it. I'm using these nails now to dig out this chunk of flint from the creek bank, and damn if it isn't perfect for what I need it to do. It's got an edge on it already, one I can sharpen by napping off a slice with another rock. Once again, the world is telling me to cut into my own flesh, because instead of exploding into a bunch of tiny pieces, when I hit it, the flint breaks clean, making an edge sharp enough to slice my finger pad. The whole thing fits in my hand nicely, the edge of a tooth that isn't mine but only hungers for what I've got. When I hold it, I become a weapon. My arm an axe handle, the flint a good blade. I can hack off the bad part of my foot with this. I know it. Still, I delay. I walk clear into the evening, ignoring a rainstorm that kicks up and soaks me, pushing forward and hoping for a house or road, someone's wandering dog that I can follow home, but there's nothing and no one. And soon I realize I'm singing a song from my childhood, one that I always loved. The bear went over the mountain, the bear went over the mountain, the bear went over the mountain, and what do you think he saw? That poor fucker saw another mountain. While I'm not climbing peaks exactly, they may as well have been for all the effort it's taking. My foot is hot and heavy in the sling, my knees screaming from being bent so long, my arms shaky, and a fresh trickle of blood running down my side from where the crutch has flat punctured my back. I got nothing to look forward to, but self-dismemberment and maybe seeing another mountain. And I'm so much more into my singing than thinking about that I don't realize I'm going over the edge of the ridge until it's too late. I roll ass over tea kettle, my hand clutching tight onto my chunk of flint and the other gripping my crutch, because they're the most valuable things I own. My foot slips free from the sling, my leg bending hard under as I crash into the little trickle of water at the bottom. I am nothing but nerves, hot and severed, a warm bag of skin filled with pain. I can't even make a noise. I hurt so bad, like the inhale of a baby right before it throws a rip-roaring fit. A moment of silence to consider what's about to come. There aren't even swears for how I feel right now, or enough language to cover it. I stare up at the sky and let pain have its way, rain starting to splatter on my face. I'm concerned just lying here until the water rises enough to cover my mouth and my nose, then the clouds part for a moment, and a ray of light breaks through, pointing just like a spotlight. At camp they called those Jesus clouds. But they're not landing on Christ right now. The heavens opened up for me so I could find a meth lab. Meth smells like ass. I know this because my Uncle Chuck went into what he called a business venture. A few years ago, and my dad called a federal offense. Dad didn't like it too much when Chuck handed me and Duke each a wad of bills and asked us to keep an eye on a trailer he had set up out in the woods. He said since we were minors, we couldn't get slapped with anything too serious, and he'd been sure to put the lab out on public land so that we could claim we were just wandering if anybody official ever showed up. Dad was not happy with my new job, but Chuck said he owed him one. Apparently back in the 90s, Uncle Chuck told my dad, wouldn't it be great to start a business where you rented your DVDs to people, mailed the DVD back to them, and they mailed them back, and it'd be better than running to the video store and easy money besides. He had it all worked out until Dad told him it was stupid. Nobody wanted to rent somebody else's porn anyway. And then Netflix happened, and Uncle Chuck has never really forgiven him. So that's how I got a job guarding a meth lab. But I didn't dare touch the stuff myself, or I knew Dad would kill me. Given the mess I saw coming to buy, I wasn't in a big hurry to try it. Chuck paid us pretty good, and Duke and I would just sit out there in lawn chairs, him smoking weed while we talked. I earned enough to buy myself a real nice backpack, but then a bigger dealer than Chuck got word of his little lab, and we found it torched one day. Chuck lying off in a bush with the shit kicked out of him. This is why prevention is a good thing. The setup I've discovered looks to be about the same type of deal as Uncle Chuck's, but smaller. It's a little pop-up camper, pulled in here so long ago that the tracks are gone and any bush that got whacked down in the process has sprung back up and done a few years of growing in the meantime. It's even up on blocks, which tells me whoever is running things has been doing it so for a while and feels secure enough to stay. Which means I'm in the ass middle of nowhere. Door's locked, but I kick it in with my good leg, just as the storm gets a second wind, letting down a sheet of rain that makes the roof on this thing sing louder than I did after my foot got crushed. I drag myself into the camper, pushing the door shut behind me, just in time. A wall of water hits the side of the camper so hard I feel it shift on the blocks and cross my fingers. I'm not about to go back over the ridge and die crushed in a meth lab. It settles back into place, and so does my stomach, so I take a minute to catch my breath. I know enough about the cooking process to know this place hasn't been used in a while. All of the cooked stuff, beakers, flasks, pans, is pushed off to the side of the counter, and scummy from the last use that never got washed up. I get to my feet and start opening cupboards, hoping somebody used this place enough to have some food squirreled away. And that's when I find the pills. Apparently, they decided to upgrade. The cupboards are lined with orange prescription bottles, the labels torn away. Some are full, some only have a few pills. There's enough here to get the whole county high as a kite, and the dog too. There's also an old Whitman's candy bar tin full of cash. The bill's filthy and lumped together, making it clear that it's a dirty business, but it's a good one too, because there's enough here to probably send me to college even if I lost both my legs right up to the hip. I put it back, wiping my hands on my jeans. More useful to me is a box of granola bars, 6 months expired and likely to break my teeth, but it's food, and it's deeply needed. I crawl into the bare mattress and find a moldy blanket shoved down between it and the wall. As night takes over day, I curl up into a ball, huddle under it, chew on a granola until my gums bleed. Sid, could you maybe not eat that toy right now? Sorry about my companion here. He's not as quiet when reading. My brain gives me a break, a much needed reprieve from reality. It must know that I'm safe here because it's the first time I've slept deep enough to dream. It must also know what I need because I dream about running. Alright, I'm going to try this name here. Laney Uncapper. We'll go with that. I went to school better than mine, had higher cheekbones than me, and longer legs to go with them. Her cross-country team had extra trainers, expensive uniforms, and one of those tents that has rooms in it that they used when they traveled. I hated her on principle, and she hated me because I kept beating her. Go get it. It started in junior high. Our county's small enough that we knew the faces on the other teams by then. Some of them friendly, some of them not. We found out quickly that we were the front runners, breaking out of the starting line and keeping our lead on the sorry sacks behind us the whole time. High school came and we traded in 2 miles for 5Ks every weekend, and a few scattered into the week for good measure. Always we were neck and neck, me and Lainey. Lane? I'm gonna guess it's Lainey because it's a girl's name. Hers cleaner than mine, I admit. Her neck. When she popped up in my dreams, I'm almost glad to. 1 second. Sit. Sit, stop. Sit. Give it. Go get it. Sorry about that interruption there. As he comes back. She gives me the sideways eye. Yes. When she pops up in my dreams, I'm almost glad to see her just because it's another human face. She gives me the side eye she always did as I paced her. Both of us spitting when it would hit the other, even blowing out a snot rocket for good measure if we knew the wind was just right. I let her have the lead on a hill because I know the burst of energy she uses on the climb will cost her later. I've got enough in the tank to turn it on the end. We take a curve, and I'm not at my old course anymore. The way a dream takes you. I'm back at the state qualifiers junior year. We've headed for the woods. Those woods caused me some trouble. Same as the ones I'm in now is doing. The papers have been talking up this rivalry, setting us up as country mice and city mouse. And doesn't everybody love an underdog? Or mouse? I was that exactly. I'd been under for so much of my life and everything but running that I was taking this and no questions asked. But Lainey started in right at the line. All of us girls started it right at the line. All of us girls hopping in place, jogging or leaning on each other's shoulders as we pulled our heels back to our asses. I had a hold of Kavita. I was stretching out my quads when Lainey got close enough to make sure I'd hear her. Pretty windy, she said to one of her teammates as they stretched, her blonde fishtail braids laying alongside her in the grass. Lean into it, her friend said, pulling hers back towards her shoulder to give her calf muscle a tweak. Not worried about me, Lainey said, making sure to catch my eye. I'm thinking it might be enough to blow all the trash away. Too bad it can't gust enough to pick up a whore, I said. Kavita put her forehead on mine, pulling my gaze to her. You stop that, Ashley Hawkins, she said, dark eyes intent on mine. You're better than her on the course. Be better than her off it. It took me by surprise. I'm really butchering this name, I'm sure. As Kavita, and I've also made a new name for it each time. It wasn't one to correct me. She usually left that to Meredith. But she expected more of me when I had my uniform on, I guess. And I know I let her down because Lainey had me on that curve, and I was a few strides behind her going into the woods. That course has always been a tough one, and the woods was a nice breather of flat ground speckled in shade. Coach didn't worry about the runners needing them on their legs, so they never followed us in, and the course was too skinny for spectators in there. We were alone, me and Lainey, way ahead of everybody else, when she glanced over her shoulder and gave me a smile. It was a bitch-ass smile, and a poor choice on her part, because it fired quicker than tender in my gut, and I shot off after her, not thinking about winning or college or anything other than hurting her bad. I came out of the woods first. I heard footsteps behind me and recognized them. Kavita's. A new name. She caught up to me and without a word reached down her front and pulled out the handkerchief she always carried with her when she ran because she was too classy to blow it all over the course. I held it to my split lip and pressed until it stopped bleeding. Wiped off the run of blood that had slipped down my neck and into my cleavage and gave it back to Kavita. She fell back and I went ahead, glancing over my shoulder once to see her doing the same thing for her Laney, whose left eye was swollen shut. I won that race, but damn if it felt good. I won that race, but damn if I felt good about it. Kavita never said a thing to me, which was worse than the reaming coach gave me afterwards. Laney got it too. They put us shoulder to shoulder and shoot us out until they had even less air than we did. But neither one of us opened our mouths. We settled it our own way, and we both knew it wasn't over yet. Except it was. But she got pregnant, and now I'm lost in the woods, and the last time I saw Laney, she had one eye swollen shut, and the other staring me down, begging my fist to close the other. She doesn't look that way in my dream. Laney's healthy and strong, further ahead of me than she ever was in any race. She looks back over her shoulder as she heads into the shadows. There's no smile this time, only worry. And when I get into the trees, she's nowhere to be found. Laney's not in front of me, and Kavita's isn't behind me. I'm alone in the woods, even in my dreams. Alright, so there's my wonderful job of reading chapter 4. Again, this is Be Not Far From Me. First time reading it. Very happy that you guys have joined me for this, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Y'all have a great evening.